Back with more now on America Talks Live. We will talk to you. Your phone calls coming up at 1-877-NEWSMAX. That's 1-877-639-7629. But first, with tonight's debate just a matter of hours away, let's take a look back at past debate blunders and other key moments. Ed Berliner has more.
I said to Kennedy, would you like some makeup? And he said, no, I don't want any makeup. And Nixon overheard that. Nixon needed makeup. Kennedy didn't. So he said, gee, I don't think I want any makeup either. He needed it.
And there was born one of the first and more egregious errors in presidential debate history, 1961, when Richard Nixon not only allowed opponent John Kennedy to see him sweat, he let the entire nation see him break out in a facial waterworks. Check out that chin.
I think that the means that I advocate will reach that goal better than the means that he advocates.
It's a good bet that appearance and the lack of pancake #2 makeup cost Nixon the 1960 election in the closest balloting to that date since 1916. Nixon won the popular vote. JFK took the Electoral College. Nixon also played a minor role when Gerald Ford lost the '76 race for a second term. Ford was already taking heat after pardoning Nixon for his Watergate crimes. And then in this debate against Jimmy Carter, he verbally dropped a bomb at a time when relations with the Soviet Union could not have been worse.
There is no Soviet domination of Eastern Europe, and there never will be under a Ford administration.
At the height of the Cold War, no backstepping or clarification would help. This Ford was permanently parked from politics. The lessons then for presidential debates are easy. Don't ask a question you can't answer.
Who am I? Why am I here?
Have those cliff notes memorized to the point of having them burned into your inner eyelids.
It's 3 agencies of government when I get there that are gone. Commerce, education, and the, what's the third one there? Let's see.
Never talk about your age, unless, of course, it works.
I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit, for political purposes, my opponent's youth and inexperience.
And always leave them laughing. JD, it's all yours.
Thanks very much, Ed, and we will talk both historically and about the here and now with the debate coming up. So pleased to welcome in former Michigan Congressman and the former Director of the Office of Management and Budget, David Stockman. David is the author of a brand new book entitled Trump, A Nation on the Brink of Ruin and How to Bring It Back. And David, you are indeed a policy maven. We'll get to your book in a second. But watching Ed's package there and hearing Ronald Reagan with the joke to Walter Mondale reminds us all that you played a key role both in 1980 and in 1984 preparing President Reagan. Fill us in on your job during those key campaigns.
Well, that's exactly right, and that clip brought back old memories. I drew the short straw and was drafted to be Jimmy Carter in the debate rehearsals in 1980, a whole week, morning and afternoon, a couple hours at a time. And it was amazing to see Ronald Reagan progress as the week went on, and he figured out the lines that he wanted to use, the posture that he would assume, the delivery that he would make. And as we all know, that certainly was well worth the effort, because he won the election, in my view, in the Cleveland debate a week before the election, when he delivered that famous line, "There you go again, Mr. President," when Carter tried to attack him for being opposed to Medicare. All of that had been anticipated, all of that had been worked through and rehearsed, and he did a magnificent job because, that was part of his toolkit. He was an actor in his day, and he knew how to take the stage and to man the podium, so to speak. In 1984, I was Mondale. By then, Reagan was way ahead, so the worry was that in desperation, Mondale would come across, guns blaring, the so-called mean Mondale, as we called it. So I had the unusual privilege of being able to attack with impunity with some pretty nasty lines, the leader of the free world. in October 1984 when we prepared for that debate.
Yeah, I'm just curious, though, that line he came up with about "I will not take advantage of my opponent's youth and inexperience" about age. Were you in on that preparation, too, or was that spontaneous the night of the second debate with Mondale, as you recall?
The second, that was spontaneous, although the issue was one that we worked over and over during the rehearsals. He had variations of that line, but he delivered it perfectly and with exactly the right timing and intonation the actual night of the second debate. He didn't do that well in the first debate.
No, I remember.
Some people may remember, and of course they blamed it on over-preparation, that we had worked him over too hard, that we had prepared him for the mean Mondale too literally. He was a little off his game, but he came roaring back.
Oh, he did. Let Reagan be Reagan. Listen, we're going to let our callers be our callers, then we'll get to your book. To Sarasota, Florida at 1-877-Newsmax. Let's welcome Richard to America Talks Live. Hiya, Richard.
Good evening.
Good to have you.
Three quick questions. One, why don't they have sponsors for the refugees coming in? People put up collateral, their houses, their cars, their dogs, their kids. Something happens and they are liable for them. The second thing is, why don't they have CC camps anymore to get people off of welfare? And the third thing is, would the Clintons say politically correct? What's in it for me?
Well, I don't know about that third one. To your first 2 points, number one, sponsors. This is the thing about immigration law, Brother Stockman. It's on the books. You're supposed to have a sponsor. We fail to enforce immigration law. That would be important with our refugees. Left one C out, Civilian Conservation Corps, the 3 Cs. That's more of a New Deal thing. You want to put people back to work by making sure you adopt policies that allow that. And of course, during our days in Congress, we had a time limit on welfare where you had to go get a job, so that took people off welfare. I don't know how you can say politically correct fashion what's in it for me. So let me transition, Brother Stockman, to what's in your book. I know we're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but when I read that title, Trumped, and what you have to say, it doesn't sound like you're exactly really behind Donald Trump. Give us a take on the book.
Well, the take is it's not a testimonial in behalf of Trump, the candidate, or his platform, because, you know, his platform is a bit inconsistent and sketchy and, let's say, undeveloped. But it's really an indictment of 30 years worth of misrule by what I call the Wall Street Washington elite, based on too much war abroad, too much debt at home, a Federal Reserve that is basically out of control, a rogue agency that has created bubble after bubble that frankly have benefited a very small slice of the population, the so-called 1% who own most of the financial assets, and has left what I call flyover America. And you can see that on the cover of the book, that great space between the East Coast and the West Coast behind. And I document much of that in my book. And I would like to mention just one or two things. If we have an honest measure of inflation, not the one that the BLS puts out, which drastically undermeasures the true cost of living for health care and for shelter and basic necessities of life that Main Street America faces. But if we use an honest inflation measure, then real median income, that is for the middle household in America today, is down 17% from where it was in the year 2000. That isn't progress, that is a shrinking living standard, drastically shrinking, and something we've never experienced before. Other things I point out in the book is that if we talk about real breadwinner jobs, full-time, full pay, jobs in construction or manufacturing or mining and energy or the white-collar professions or business management or distribution and wholesale, when we look at that, we see there hasn't been one new breadwinner job created in America, as hard as this is to believe.
And Trump makes those points. So I'm going to read your book because I think it's a great thing, but have you sent a copy to Mr. Trump? And should he call on you, do you expect to offer him some advice formally? We got about 30 seconds.
Yeah, first of all, there's a lot of advice in the book. I propose 10 deals that a Trump presidency could make. I call it a peace deal, a jobs deal, a sound money deal, a fiscal balance deal, and so forth. And I lay out in detail what needs to be done. But it's basically going back to the old-time religion. We need to put this activist Fed out of business, get them out of the financial markets, let interest rates operate, let price discovery work. We need to get this 20 trillion debt under control because it's going to be 30 trillion in a matter of a few
And
years.
Trump gets it. I sat down to interview him. To all you've said, I would say a hail and hearty amen. And thank you, David Stockman, author of the book Trumped, A Nation on the Brink of Ruin and How to Bring It Back. A reminder, later tonight, we'll be looking for your decision on the debate at newsmaxpolls.com.